We have done light and we've done medium, and now it is time for heavy weapons TTK tier list for season 8. Using the same format as before, each weapon is split into two parts. First part is being the actual TTK values that are measured using the practice range, and the second half is the actual gameplay examples of how weapons are performing now. There is a small change made to this round. I have two separate tier list breakdowns. The first is the way that we've done it in the previous videos, which is taking the measurements that we get throughout the video and putting them into the Excel sheet and then sorting the list using the values that we measured all along the way. Once I saw that list though, I know that there's going to be a lot of issues with it. So I went ahead and did a second version right after that of my actual own personal opinion on where these weapons fall for season 8. The weapons are in random order with the exception of the first one on the list, which is of course my favorite, the M60. If there was ever a weapon I was biased for, it is absolutely the M60. In my opinion, the strongest weapon in the game for all players, especially for players who are consistent at hitting a center of mass. The M60's 70 round magazine allows you to fire for about 7 total seconds without having to stop, making it a very versatile weapon in a number of different circumstances. It also does fairly good damage overall, and it will chew through defenses like mesh shields, dome shields, and even goo grenades. One of the most common pieces of feedback I get about the M60 is there are a lot of players that have trouble controlling its recoil. It is actually not that hard to control the M60's recoil, but you have to have a light touch with what you're doing to ensure its stability. It has a big kick up front, which I think throws a lot of people off, but if you just compensate slightly against that big kick and then hold in that same overall tension pattern, you will find the recoil very easy to manage for this weapon. On controller, you only need to pull the control stick down about 30%, 40% of the way, and it will compensate for most of the recoil on the weapon. And as long as you're aiming for center mass, the left to right recoil that it has deeper in the magazine isn't enough to push it outside of the bounds of a player's body size. Beyond that, the M60 has decent fall off range, starting at 25 and only falling completely off at 35 meters, but it is still very valuable to be shot from any sort of distance. You can do close range, medium, and long range, and be effective with this weapon as long as you're able to control that recoil and hit your targets. Hitting headshots is definitely the better option for this weapon, but as long as you're hitting your shots consistently in the body, you will eliminate targets left and right with ease. You can also equip just about any sight to it, making it a very flexible pick for your setup. Because it has a 70 round drum magazine, there is no difference in reload speed if you have any bullets left in the magazine versus a total empty reload. Both the tactical and the regular reloads take about 3.5 seconds, which is one of the tougher parts to manage with this weapon. That said, as long as you have a piece of cover and you're able to break line of sight, you're able to use that reload to your advantage, because once you get the weapon fully reloaded, you have another 70 total bullets that you can use to spray down any targets that are pushing you. In the right player's hands, this weapon is hard to deal with, and I can vouch for its effectiveness because it is the one weapon that I continue to use across all of my heavy games. Minigun has a 250 round drum that it fires mini bullets from in rapid succession. It can be spun up in one of two different ways. You can either hold down a secondary fire, which will allow you to spin the chamber without firing rounds, or you can hold down primary fire and it will begin shooting after a brief spin up period. With the 250 round drum magazine, you have a lot of time to spray bullets, and it allows you to put down a ton of suppressive fire. You can gatekeep a lot of players from entering into a space simply by holding the trigger down with the minigun. Similar to shotguns, you don't have a full zoom with the minigun. You only have a slight scope in when you hold down the secondary fire. While zooming in will not necessarily help your aim, it can be helpful in allowing you to see the target a little bit better and line your shots up better that way. But outside of that, there is no tangible benefit in terms of the game for zooming in with the secondary fire. The minigun actually has a fairly far fall off damage, starting at 30 meters but not taking the full impact until the 50 meter mark. This means that you also have a pretty phenomenal range for the stream of bullets that come out of the minigun. While you do have the ability to spray a ton of bullets, those bullets are not necessarily the most accurate. The minigun has a very wide dispersion, which makes the bullets travel outwards a little bit farther away from each other at further distances. Within the 5 to 10 meter range, good luck to any player that gets caught in its bullet stream. There is almost no way to survive a minigun in close range once it's locked onto you. The minigun is also capable of taking out structures. While it isn't necessarily the best option for getting through walls and taking down suspended structures, you can very much use a portion of the magazine to get through those sorts of defenses. Learning to balance the spin up time with your movement is the challenge, as you want to make sure that you stay spun up as much as possible. Staying spun up allows you to then begin firing your bullets once you see a target or once you need to. Otherwise, you have to wait for that brief spin up period time before the weapon is ready to go, which in close range engagements can make the difference between life or death. Some of the best ways to deal with a minigun is to use goo. While the minigun does chew out tons of bullets in short fashion, it will take a bit of time to get through defenses like goo grenades. All in all, the minigun is a juggling act, and those who learn to perform the juggling acts needed to be successful with it will find incredible value with this powerful weapon. The Sledgehammer is the king in close range combat, especially in tight corridors and small spaces. One overhead swing can drain any opponent's health, and it will eliminate a light in a single swing, a medium in 2 swings, as well as a heavy in 2 swings. While you are winding up for your swing, you are capable of fully rotating around to hit players that are moving around next to you. So you can kind of pre-charge your swing before you see the player and allow yourself the second to turn to make that actual hit impact. As most of us know, the Sledgehammer is also extremely proficient at taking down the arena, as we know that there are many hammer bros out there still bringing the structures down as we speak. This makes the unique ability for the Sledgehammer to cause not just chaos in terms of its damage potential, but also chaos in terms of rearranging the arena to its desired outcome. And once you take down all of the different places for players to hide using the Sledgehammer's ability to destroy buildings, you change the entire concept of the field that you're playing on, which may give you an advantage to players who are not used to playing in total rubble. Its overhead attack does 175 damage, and then its regular horizontal swing does 100 damage, which allows you to essentially combo all the way through each class. Good pairings for the Sledgehammer are Winch and are Goo Gun, because you can essentially pull players to you and or stop their movement from getting away from you, and it pairs it really nicely together. For me, I was finding effectiveness using it with Mesh Shield because I could essentially close the gap while protecting myself from taking any damage, and then continue on with meleeing once I got to the target. Similar to the spear and even to the dagger or the sword for light class, you have to play the game a little bit differently and come from angles that players are not necessarily expecting. If you allow a player to see you coming directly at them, it gives them way too much opportunity to just continue to pull back and keep their distance from you. But if you're able to come crashing through a wall that they're not anticipating, you immediately have the upper hand, and having them within your swing's radius essentially means you have an elimination for free. While maybe not as deadly as it used to be, it is still an extremely strong weapon, and especially if you are good with melee, almost no better choice for the heavy class than the Sledgehammer. The Chaos 23 is a unique shotgun in the game. Being the only slug shotgun, it fires the slug instead of pellets, meaning you don't have to worry about pellet dispersion with this specific weapon. Additionally, because it is a slug shotgun, it also allows you to do phenomenal damage to the arena, which you can use to your advantage to create gaps, create holes, and create sight lines that you can use to your advantage to stop steals or even push in to steal for yourself. The KS-23 is also like the sniper in the sense that its projectiles are both a hit scan and a projectile. Within 25 meters, the weapon is a hit scan, which means that as long as your cursor is on the target, it will hit and deal its 100 damage. But outside of 25 meters, it is converted into a projectile weapon, which then begins to get affected by gravity as well as lead time for your targets. Within its fall-off range, this weapon does 100 damage flat with no critical damage applied, And it's also like other shotguns in the game where there is no benefit to zooming in, with the exception of the visual benefit you're given by being able to slightly see your targets better. You can also reload the cartridges individually, or once you get down to a fully emptied weapon, it has a unique animation that reloads bullets much faster. All in all, this weapon is very unique in the space, and if you can learn to use it effectively, it is a powerful tool in the right heavy's hands. The MGL is a 6-round grenade launcher, dealing tons and tons of damage to both players and the environment. Every projectile is able to be bounced, but it will only bounce one time before it detonates on the next impact. Each round that it fires has a maximum fuse time of 2.5 seconds. The MGL has no fall off range, so as far as you can shoot it, it will deal the maximum amount of damage as long as it's hitting something within that 2.5 second maximum fuse time. The MGL doesn't have any sort of dispersion. You can fire it in the air, you can fire it while jumping, while running, while crouching, and it will always act the same way. The shots will not deviate in any sort of a way under those conditions. One of its biggest counters in the game is the APS turret, but it really only counters one magazine, so you can just drain your magazine into an APS to get it off the field. Take that 3-second reload time, and then you have a full ability to add damage with no counter in place. The MGL does not deal any critical damage, it only does the flat amount of damage, which is roughly about 83 to the body when it explodes on a target. The MGL is best in enclosed areas like indoors. It does not perform as well when somebody is outside, free from any sort of a wall or ceiling to bounce grenades against. It is also challenging to hit players that are up close, so if you're a melee player, getting close range with the MGL actually works in your benefit. Beyond that, the amount of noise pollution that the MGL creates can make it very challenging to hear where other enemies are coming from, and it can obscure a lot of the footstep sounds that players use to know whether or not they're being pushed by an enemy. All in all, the MGL can be a powerhouse in the right player's hands. The Shack 50 is a 20-round assault rifle that can deal high volumes of damage due to its double projectile firing mechanism. It fires 2 bullets at the same time that fork outwards from each other the further they travel. This means that in closer range engagements under the 20 meters or so, if you're aiming for the head, you will hit both bullets at the same time. But once you get beyond that 20 meter radius or so, those 2 bullets will spread so far apart that you cannot hit both onto the target. This innately limits the full fall-off range for this weapon just by how it's designed. But if you're able to stay within that medium to short range, it is a powerful assault rifle that almost anybody can use. The balancing act for the Shack is learning to deal with its short magazine. You will find yourself reloading a lot of the time, and if you allow your magazine to get fully empty, the reload time is significantly longer than if you had bullets still left in the chamber. It is just under 1 full second of a difference, so learning to stop with a single bullet remaining for your reloads is really going to make the difference for you in the arena. Beyond the fall off range that is innately from the design of the bullets forking outward, it also has a short fall off range starting at 15 meters and ending at 25. Making it a very effective weapon in close to medium range and very ineffective at the longer ranges. That said, if you are up close and personal, you can hip fire with this weapon with relative ease. It is fairly accurate from the hip and reliable in those circumstances. While it does have some bullet dispersion when you're moving around, it is not as bad as something like the Deagles, and you can actually use this weapon effectively in all forms of movement, with the exception of obviously jumping and falling from height. The Shack may also join the list of one of the most effective weapons ever added to the game from Embark. Just like with the Matter, this weapon has not taken any significant balance changes since it was introduced. The only balance change it has taken is just to increase the equip time, but outside of that, the damage and usability of this weapon remains unchanged, making it very balanced within the sandbox. All in all, if you are capable of juggling the amount of reloading that you will have to do, this weapon can do a lot of things for you and provide a ton of value. The Flamethrower may be the definition of spray and pray. With its wide angle area of effect, the flame can damage multiple enemies at the same time, making it very easy to learn, especially for new players to the arena. You do need to be playing within the closer range environments, but its powerful capability is the ability to hit multiple players at the same time, essentially doubling its effectiveness for every target that's added to its cone of fire. It also applies a damage over time effect that will stack on top of the actual damage the flamethrower applies from simply burning you, which means that you can find yourself being deleted in a short amount of time if the flamethrower has you locked in its sights. Additionally, good flamethrower players know when the damage tick is enough to eliminate an enemy, and they can disengage from a fight when they know that you are going to burn yourself to death. In order to combat the damage over time, you can use something like a smoke grenade, a smoke canister, or even step into the water on Kyoto, and it will put the damage over time effect out. While this weapon is certainly novel, there are players who have found ways to utilize it to its maximum potential, and I even know of some effective players who have made it all the way into Ruby by single-handedly using the flamethrower. If you can learn to wield this weapon to its maximum potential, it will provide you nearly infinite value to all of the engagements you find yourself in. The spear is an interesting weapon within this game and in this space. While it definitely boasts some strengths in terms of its strong attack and its ability to do poke damage with a melee weapon, overall, I feel the spear is not quite as effective in the sandbox as it potentially could be. As we saw during the Heaven or Else event, being able to have a pause after your big swing attack is actually super helpful for ensuring that you're not stuck in a 5-second animation, totally vulnerable to any player. This makes the balancing act of dealing with the spear essential to knowing when and when to not actually use the big spin attack. The range of the spear, though, is great in terms of melee combat. It is essentially doubled the range of regular melee weapons, allowing it to have a unique advantage in those close range fights. You definitely don't want to find yourself in an enclosed space dealing with the spear, because that one big spin attack has enough damage to delete both a light and a medium in a single full spin attack. While it doesn't eliminate a heavy in the single spin attack, it does take a heavy down to below 40 HP, which means that you can add a melee right at the end of your spin attack, making it an insta elim in that case. I have found an amazing combination using the lock bolt with the spear. The lock bolt's lock radius is essentially the same width as the spear's spin attack, so if you have players who are locked in place, you can essentially go and spin on top of the lock bolt and it will eliminate just about anybody that is currently tethered. If you are a melee player and you are proficient with this weapon's abilities, it can be powerful in the right circumstances, but it is very dependent on the user's capabilities with its unique skill set. The Lewis gun is one of the staple weapons for the heavy class, and it has one of the best magazines in the game. With 47 powerful rounds in its magazine, this weapon has a lot of potential for eliminating enemies in the arena. Having a fall-off range at the 35 to 40 meters makes it a powerful weapon at the further ranges, and allowing it to also be successful in the closer range environments. You can find success with this weapon using it from the hip, but it may not be as accurate while you're moving and while you're airborne, but you can rely on this weapon to accomplish a whole lot for you if you can learn to control its recoil. Its recoil pattern is one of the toughest to manage within the game, and it has a lot of left to right recoil that feels a bit random to the inexperienced player using the weapon. Because of its further fall-off range and its more powerful shot, it actually does outclass the M60 in further range engagements, but that also means that you have to be capable of hitting the shots from the Lewis, which are, again, very tough to land, especially deeper in the magazine. The Lewis gun is also capable of chewing through defenses better than the M60 does, allowing it to eat through mesh shields, dome shields, even goo grenades with only a small amount of its magazine used. Additionally, the slower fire rate and the deeper magazine means that you are capable of staying in a fight for long periods of time, which allows you a lot of versatility in how you use the weapon. You can equip just about any sight to this weapon, making it very flexible for you as the player to adjust it to the way that you like to play. It does have a fairly long reload time, similar to the M60 at about 3.5 seconds, but If you have any bullets left in your magazine before you reload, it is slightly faster at about 3.2 seconds or so. All in all, if you are capable of controlling the recoil, this weapon is a powerful choice and can do a lot of things for you. But if you struggle with controlling the recoil, you may find more effectiveness with a slightly less powerful weapon, but easier to control recoil like the M60. The Deagles are an interesting weapon because you have two different weapons that you're firing at the same time. Each shot is alternated between the weapons until all the way down to empty. One of my favorite aspects of this gun is that when you get down to a single bullet left, you have a faster reload speed because you don't need to chamber the weapons, which is a little ironic given if you have a single shot left, one of the two weapons would need to be chambered, so essentially you're getting a totally free reload at that single shot remaining. This gives it a unique edge in being able to balance its reload times a little bit more effectively than if it was true to the weapon's overall total design. If you are standing still and crouched and pacing your shots, you will be extremely accurate with this weapon, but the minute you start to move, that accuracy begins to decrease significantly. The more you move, the less accurate this weapon is, and it is affected more so than other weapons in the game. I have found personally a lot of inconsistency with the accuracy of this weapon whenever I'm moving around. That said, if you are capable of hitting your headshots with the Deagles, it is one of the strongest weapons for the class, especially given its high fire rate. With the two weapons, being able to hit multiple headshots in a row will allow you to delete targets in less than a second. The Titan BFR, which is new to this season, is one of the strongest single shot weapons in the game. Hitting headshots means you're going to deal 135 damage and leave any opponent on the other side of it reeling. It has a very slow fire rate and a very long reload time, making it a weapon you really have to truly be precise with. Otherwise, you're going to find a lot of missed shots and missed opportunities will lead to your own personal elimination. It has an extremely far fall-off range at the 30 to 45 meters, allowing you to be effective at the deeper ranges and even push back some players that are using other ranged weapons like the LH1, like the sniper, and even the CB01 repeater for mediums. You can contend with just about anybody using this weapon as long as you're able to hit your shots. This weapon will absolutely struggle in third-party scenarios and multiple teamfight scenarios, given you only have the 5 rounds and the slow reload time. You really cannot take on multiple players consistently at the same time. It has a decent hip fire accuracy, though you should absolutely stay zoomed in as best as you can, given you will have that 100% accuracy while you're zoomed in with this weapon. All in all, a powerful tool for the heavy class and an absolute menace in the right heavy's hands who can learn to play patiently, play slow, and manage the reload time that comes with this weapon. The SA-1216 shotgun for heavy might be one of the best weapons in the game. That is especially if you watch pro players and some of the best content creators out there. This shotgun is used heavily across the best players in the finals. There are a lot of reasons to love this weapon, starting with its deep 16-round total magazine split across 4 separate tubes that allow you 4 separate shots. In between each of the 4-round tubes, you have a slight delay as it rotates the next tube in, which can be a bit of a juggling act for this specific weapon. That said, if you're using something like Mesh Shield, you can pull up your Mesh Shield during the animation, and once you drop your Mesh Shield, you'll be able to fire and continue on draining the magazine. Like all other shotguns in the game, there is no scoped in benefit for this weapon. It just gives you the slight visual zoom that can be helpful in aiming for your targets, but it doesn't change the weapon's performance in any way. There is no critical hits with this weapon, and it does not deal much damage to environments, only to the players that come across it. You have to be able to land all of its pellets consistently, which will spread out over longer periods of distance and become less accurate outside of the 10-meter range or so. Inside the 10-meter range though, hitting all of the pellets allows you to delete targets, especially already injured ones, with only a couple of bursts from the magazine. To be effective with this weapon, you really have to learn to juggle the rotation of its tubes. That delay and pause in between the 4th shot as it rotates tubes can really make the difference between winning and losing a fight. Also, entering a fight with less than 4 rounds in a tube is almost a surefire way to get yourself caught out. You really need to make sure that you are fully reloaded before you take an engagement, or at the very least have 4 full rounds in your tube at the ready. It is versatile in terms of heavy specializations. You can be effective with this weapon using any of the specializations there are. I, of course, find the most benefit using mesh because it allows me to get in close without taking damage before I'm able to actually deal the damage myself to the enemies. But winch is a great combo for this weapon if you're able to hit winch consistently, and goo gun may also be a great tool for you to stop players from getting away, allowing you to deal more and more damage to them. Other ways to stop player movement and player momentum is using something like the lock bolt, which is my preferred method. Locking somebody in place and then chasing them down makes the eliminations very, very easy. All in all, in terms of close range engagements, there is no stronger shotgun in the game. This weapon boasts so much potential in a player's hands if they can learn to juggle it in the way that they need to. And now it is time to reveal the actual final tier list. Here are all the weapons listed in alphabetical order and listed with all of the measurements that we got earlier in the video. It is time to finally reveal which one is the best for heavy class and which are bottom tier. There you have it. Surprisingly, somehow, someway, the minigun is on top and the Shack 50 joins it in the S tier, followed by the Deagles and the M60 in A tier. Hey, you know what? I'll take it. I knew the M60 was good, and I knew it was pretty great, but I honestly assumed it was going to be further down on the list because of how long it takes to eliminate heavies, especially with body shots. So good job, M60. Let's go, being in the A tier with the Deagles. Love to see it. Behind that is the Lewis, the SA-1216, and the Sledge in B tier, followed by the BFR Titan, the Spear, KS-23 in C, and then all the way at the bottom, the MGL-30, and somehow the Flamethrower is even worse than the MGL-30. Now I know that this list is probably going to cause more than a few frustrations because, let's be honest, if you're using the minigun, the likelihood of you hitting your headshots consistently, like is shown in this table, is almost impossible, especially outside of that point blank range. So if I was to rearrange this entire list just purely based on where I think things should be, here's what that would look like. I would put the M60 in the S tier. It has so much versatility in how it's used. Even though it's not the strongest in terms of its power, it has so much value in the ways that it can support teams, put down shots, get eliminations, and just all around be a menace for a player that knows how to use it. Just behind that would be the BFR Titan, simply because of how strong the weapon is and how accurate it is at range. This weapon, while it has its difficulties in managing multiple teams at a time, it is actually a phenomenal team support weapon because of just how powerful it is. Even though you might take a long time to eliminate players with body shots, as long as you're playing with your teammates and your teammates are putting shots on target, it absolutely sets up so many elimination potentials for the players that you're playing with. Behind that, I have to give it to the SA-12 simply because of the value that it has with a 16-round magazine and the amount of damage that you get per shot if you land your pellets. I was able to pick it up and figure it out in a short amount of time, which tells me that this weapon is just as strong as players feel that it is. The minigun is right behind it, but also because of the fact it has such a deep magazine, it allows you to do so much with the 250 bullets that it spews out. Once you're able to get the spin up and movement down, it is actually a very fluid gun, and it allows you to do just about anything that you want to in the arena. You can hold teams back at range simply because of how many bullets you're firing at a time. You can delete players up close. You can break through walls. It is a universal tool to solve a lot of problems in the arena, and I would keep it in the A tier. If you would have asked me where the Sledge was before I did the TTK, I would have told you somewhere in the bottom tier simply because I am not great with melee weapons. But spending a bunch of time with the Sledge gave me a new perspective on the weapon, and if you can utilize it in the way that it's designed, it is actually incredibly strong, and it does a lot of value for not just you, but for your team. Plus, The ability to just break down walls whenever you need to, or ceilings or floors, is such a great valuable tool for stopping cash outs and getting into rooms that are barricaded or have defenses otherwise. Behind that, in B tier, I would put the KS, the Shack, and the Akimbos there for 3 separate reasons. The KS itself, while it is strong in terms of the power that it has a short clip and a long reload time that makes the weapon tough to manage unless you are somebody like KS Rachel, who is an expert at using the weapon. It is just not that great in terms of the value that it can provide unless you spend the time learning it and learning how to maximize the value it can give you. The Shack 50, even though it hits like a truck and it can delete players up close, the truth and the fact of the matter is that at range in any sort of a way, it is just not there. It does not perform at all outside of the medium to long range, though it just cannot be that high up on the list. It is great in the short range, but beyond that, the Shack struggles to provide much value to its team. Not only that, but if you try and get through some goo or you try and break through a mesh shield or a dome shield, you're exhausting so much of your ammunition that you're having to reload, and anybody that's sitting behind those defenses has free shots onto you. The Akimbo is simply because of the fact that it is not a good weapon if you are using it while you're moving, and in a game that is built around movement, it simply doesn't keep up with its peers. For a precision-based weapon, it is odd to me that when you are moving the slightest amount while you're walking and just trying to adjust to different players that are around you, it is all of a sudden not able to hit the broadside of a barn, and for that reason I have it in B. It almost slipped to C for me specifically. If you can crouch, stand in place, be still, fire it as it's designed, it will hit perfectly and hit strong. But if you try and use it in any sort of a realistic way while you're moving around in combat, good luck hitting your shots. In the right player's hands, the Flamethrower would be all the way up into S tier, and I do love the Flamethrower. I had a ton of fun with it. Its ability to do a bunch of damage to a bunch of players all at once is a phenomenal aspect, but in most cases, the Flamethrower is limited in what value it can provide, and if you are a player that's playing against a Flamethrower, you can reasonably adjust to its playstyle and keep your distance, which makes it an all but ineffective weapon. Now, there are some players that know how to work around that, but I think in most players' hands, especially mine, it is just not as valuable as some of the other weapons for the class. The same thing goes for the Spear. It's simply because the spin attack leaves you so vulnerable that there's just no reason for you to use it, and the amount of time that it takes for you to use your primary attack to get eliminations just is about as low as it can get, and it just puts you at the most ultimate risk because you're just sitting there poking, not actually protecting, not doing anything really valuable except for putting damage on target. So this weapon, all in all, to me, it doesn't really do a whole lot, but similar to the Flamethrower, the fact that you can get multiple players at once with the spin attack makes it a little bit more valuable than I feel the Lewis and the MGL-30. Now, for the Lewis, you might be wondering, how in the world is it in D tier? Why was it all the way at the bottom of the list? Well, I'll be honest with you, I would have put it at the bottom if the MGL was not a part of the Heavy's toolkit, but this is the reason why. I absolutely do not feel the Lewis has any purpose for the Heavy class because of the M60. The M60 outclasses it in every single way. There is no point in running the Lewis when you have the M60 and what it's capable to do. You might be freaking out thinking, well, at range, the Lewis is better because it hits harder and has a farther fall off. Yeah, but also good luck hitting your shots because the Lewis's recoil is way more intense than the M60 is. So you're trading the fact you could hit consistently at range with the M60 for being able to hit inconsistently with the stronger hitting Lewis. I'll take the consistent shots on target all day, every single day. The Lewis needs a tune-up. It needs its own place within the Heavy's toolkit, and it can't be outclassed by something like the M60. It doesn't have an identity right now, and that's the reason why I have it so low on the list. And then lastly, for the MGL-30, I don't think anybody will be surprised at this specific placement. It is the one area that I agree with at the regular TTK, is that it should be at the bottom. Now, there are players like Truce out there that are phenomenal with the MGL, but it is not at all that great in a player like my hands. And if you are an opponent dealing with an MGL, there are a lot of reasonable ways to counter it, which are just simply holding up a mesh shield in front of the grenades, getting up close and personal. There's so many different ways that you can counter and make the MGL irrelevant that just doesn't make it have a ton of value where it sits right now in the sandbox. And that's going to be it for me. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching, for being here, for engaging. That's going to be it for me for this video and for the TTK for Season 8. I'll be honest, this was a lot of work. Learning each weapon's ins and outs to be capable of pulling clips together and putting them together for a video like this was an overhaul. Not only that, but it forced me to play in a lot of different ways that I don't normally play, which took some time to adjust to. And it took me a little bit longer to get through the clips that I wanted to. As a result of that, I'll be totally transparent. There are some clips that I pulled in from previous seasons on this, but the volume of clips is really small. It's only about 5% or so. All the actual TTK values were from this season, so that data is perfect and good to go. And you may have noticed that the clips that I am showing are for previous seasons. And a part of that is me taking a little trip down memory lane. I have put a lot of time and effort into this game, and I have grown so much as a creator in this space because of this game and because of the opportunities that it afforded me. That said, there is a balance needed to ensure that I am happy and healthy and the best possible creator that I can be. And at this point in time, I feel that it is time for me to take a break from the finals. It is a very tough decision for me to come to this conclusion, given how much effort I have put into this place and all of the great support that I've gotten from all of you. But it is the time for me to take a break from the game and play something different and get my head into a different space to allow myself to be able to come back to the finals even better than I already am. I don't anticipate it will be too long, and I hope that y'all will stick with me through that time. Thank you again for watching, for being here, and for giving me this amazing privilege of creating gaming content for a living. I am grateful every single day that I get to do this for a living, and I'm looking forward to picking up where we left off in a not so distant future. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.